And the new floor will be laid in the fellowship hall, and then everything will come back out. That one, a handful of helpers will be sufficient, so those who are willing and still have energy, we appreciate it. We will keep you informed, and if we have to do robocalls, whatever we've got to do to keep communicating this, we will keep communicating this as best as we can. My wife also wanted to let people know, if you did not already see her, the church T-shirts that we ordered are in. I think she got a bunch of you. You're good. Strike that. You don't even have to remember that announcement. Isn't that cool? Don't leave it here. Don't leave it here on the floor. Okay. Yeah, we'll do 9 a.m. Sure. We'll do 9 a.m. We'll put the pot of coffee on. I can't promise if we'll do goodies or not. You might want to come fueled up in the tank, but maybe we'll throw some goodies out there. I don't know. Okay, I know I'm missing stuff. What am I missing? Oh, yes, we have folding chairs to give away for anybody who would like some folding chairs. If you have a garage and you have picnics and you thought, boy, it'd be nice to have 6 folding chairs, or 5, or 4, or 2, or 8, until we run out. We'd like to give them to the church folks first. We have folding chairs. So just see us and let us know how many you'd like. And there's some in storage upstairs. Actually, there's some out in the carport, but they're already accounted for. So don't touch the ones in the carport. They're all accounted for. And then there's about 25 upstairs into one storage room that can go first, and then we're going to figure out how many others we need to get rid of after that. So if you want some, just see us. Let us know you want some folding chairs. That'd be great. Polly, you wanted to come up and say something. Yeah, of course.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So the word of the day is rehab. That's the word that came to my mind this morning as we were completing our music worship. And so for me today, it's been a spiritual rehab as well as a physical rehab. And I will say why. Most of you know that I recently had surgery. And tomorrow will be 2 weeks post-op. And I'm really grateful. First of all, the whole journey I've been at peace with, and it's been wonderful to not be worried about this, of many things in my life. But I did have to have a tumor removed from my stomach. So they had to cut into my stomach. And so it was said to us in the hospital that this was major surgery. Well, I didn't even think it was going to be major surgery. I mean, the surgeon said, well, I'll make one little cut, and if I can't get what I need, I might have to make a bigger cut. So my mind says, one little cut, one bigger cut. No, what I had was 4 gunshots in my belly. These are the laparoscopic thingies, those of you nurses that understand this. And the biggest one was in my belly button, which is out of which they pulled this bag containing tumor, etc. Had that not worked, the bigger cut, which I won't show you, but I still have a line to prove, would have been like here to here. So praise God. Oh, dear Lord. But the rehab this morning is, I've had to be very cautious for 2 weeks with my whole tummy system. It's a challenge to laugh sometimes, etc. But, singing this morning, the diaphragm was in work. And I'm like, wow, I'm really feeling this today more than I felt in 2 weeks. So it's been like a rehab this morning. But I just want to thank everybody for your prayers. Many of you have come to me personally and said, we have been praying for you, and I felt it, and I appreciate it. The blessed news out of this when we went back to the follow-up surgeon appointment last Wednesday was that the tumor that they pretty much thought it was going in, it turned out not to be, and it was a less problematic tumor. And by God's grace, it's benign. So going in, I believe that it was going to be that, but just having that final word that said benign was like, if I could have jumped up and down, I would have, but I wasn't ready yet to do that. So I'm still, working on diet and trying to get the whole kishkas back in, work and whatever. But I want to especially thank Sissy because she has spoiled me the last couple of weeks and has taken control of what my diet can and can't be, and has told me what I can and can't have, and has made the right foods for me to help me heal really well. So thank you, my love. Now, on the other note, rehab. So I told you the rehab was the word of the day. So our dear Gary is now in rehab. So I texted him this morning and got permission to give you an update. He's been through quite a lot. As I think you guys were made aware, he ended up in the ICU a week and a half or so ago. We went to see him on Sunday, and he didn't look good. He looked good, but he didn't look good. He's been through a battle, as we all know, and so he has sepsis in his liver, which is a big infection, right, Carol? Yeah, he has sepsis in his liver, and they have a tube where they're trying to drain this infection out. There was also a blood clot in his lung. I don't know the status of that yet. But thankfully, he's come out of ICU, and he is now in a rehab facility in Hokess Breckenridge. And so we're hoping to go see him there. He texted me this morning. He said tomorrow he gets to, you know, it's a broken text. You have to kind of figure it out. But basically what he was saying is, tomorrow I get to do old folk rehab. So he's going to do his old folk rehab tomorrow. And so just please keep praying for him. I mean, we're asking the Lord for a miracle.
Yes.
He's got a lot going on in his body. But we've seen a change in him just from being in church with us, where he's really drawing nearer and leaning more on God. And his text to me yesterday was, you know, he's really praying for him to help me, meaning him, meaning Gary, him to help Gary.
Yeah.
So that was huge to hear Gary voice in text, I'm praying for God to help me.
Amen.
So that's because of all of you and this beautiful family that we have here. So thank you, everybody.
Amen. It's all right. Amen. We are thankful for your praise report, Polly. That's a blessing. And yeah, Gary has been there, like it's 9 or 10 days now, so it's rough. If you want to drop him a text or a message or something to encourage him, I'm sure he would love it. Oh, yes. Well, in all this moving, we also realize we have a closet full of suit jackets that used to be worn by our ushers, which has not been our tradition for quite a while. But they're perfectly good ones, and they're grayish silver and in multiple sizes. If anybody would love a sport suit coat, a nice gray suit coat is probably $100 out. It's probably $200 now. I don't know with the price of suit coats. Anyways, we have a closet full of them. You can check the sizes.
See me, and I'll show you where they are.
We would gladly give them away.
Yeah.
If you would like to have a suit coat, pick one up, take it. You can wear it to the office or wherever you wear your suit coats. Not too many of them show up here in church, so anymore. Occasionally. Anyways, okay. I think, are the kids going? Brother Dan's got the kids today for Sunday school. And they can be dismissed. Today we are doing communion. Some of you did see the table came up. At the end of the meeting today, we will do communion. It is no shock to me that my wife's list of songs that she picked out was all about the Lamb and the worth of the Lamb today. And when we think about communion, we think about the worth of the Lamb. Amen. I want to go to 2 Chronicles chapter 30, though. And I'm going to bring this into communion, but if you'll go with me to 2 Chronicles chapter 30, I am going to read a little bit. I'm going to get a little bit of a history lesson here, too. I love Old Testament history. I'm a huge fan. I love extracting from these passages in text what the Lord would like to show us. And so I want to read this entire chapter, so if you will bear with me, it should be on the screen. Hezekiah, for those in the armed group, we just read this about maybe 2-3 weeks ago, so it should be quite fresh in our minds. Hezekiah sent word to all of Israel and Judah, and also wrote letters to Ephraim and Manasseh, inviting them to come to the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem and celebrate the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel. The king and his officials and the whole assembly in Jerusalem decided to celebrate the Passover in the 2nd month. They had not been able to celebrate it at the regular time because not enough priests had consecrated themselves and the people had not assembled in Jerusalem. The plan seemed right both to the king and to the whole assembly. They decided to send a proclamation throughout Israel from Beersheba to Dan, calling the people to come to Jerusalem and celebrate the Passover to the Lord, the God of Israel. It had not been celebrated in large numbers according to what was written. At the king's commands, couriers went throughout Israel and Judah with letters from the king and from his officials, which read, People of Israel, return to the Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, that he may return to you who are left, who have escaped from the hands of the king of Assyria. Do not be like your parents and your fellow Israelites who were unfaithful to the Lord, the God of their ancestors, so that they made an object of horror as you see. Do not be stiff-necked as your ancestors were. Submit to the Lord. Come to his sanctuary, which he has consecrated forever. Serve the Lord your God, and he will turn away from you. Serve the Lord your God, so that his fierce anger will turn away from you. If you return to the Lord, then your fellow Israelites and your children will be shown compassion by their captors and will return to this land. For the Lord your God is gracious and compassionate. He will not turn his face from you if you return to him. The couriers went from town to town in Ephraim and Manasseh as far as Zebulun, but people scorned and ridiculed them. Nevertheless, some from Asher, Manasseh, Zebulun humbled themselves and went to Jerusalem. Also in Judah, the hand of God was on the people to give them the unity of mind to carry out what the king and his officials had ordered, following the word of the Lord. A very large crowd of people assembled in Jerusalem to celebrate the festival of unleavened bread in the second month. They removed the altars in Jerusalem and cleared away the incense altars and threw them into the Kidron Valley. They slaughtered the Passover lamb on the 14th day of the second month. The priests and the Levites were ashamed and consecrated themselves and brought burnt offerings to the temple of the Lord. Then they took up their regular positions as prescribed by the law of Moses, the man of God. The priests splashed against the altar the blood handed to them by the Levites. Since many in the crowds had not consecrated themselves, the Levites had to kill the Passover lambs for all those who were not ceremonial clean and could not consecrate their lambs to the Lord. Although most of the many of them who came from Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun had not purified themselves, yet they ate the Passover, contrary to what was written. But Hezekiah prayed for them, saying, May the Lord, who is good, pardon everyone who sets their heart on seeking God, the Lord, the God of their ancestors, even if they are not clean according to the rules of the sanctuary. And the Lord heard Hezekiah and healed the people. The Israelites who were present in Jerusalem celebrated the festival of unleavened bread for 7 days with great rejoicing, while the Levites and priests praised the Lord every day with resounding instruments dedicated to the Lord. Hezekiah spoke encouragingly to all the Levites, who showed good understanding of the service of the Lord. For the 7 days they ate their assigned portion and offered fellowship offerings and praised the Lord, the God of their ancestors. The whole assembly then agreed to celebrate the festival for 7 more days. So for another 7 days they celebrated joyfully. Hezekiah, king of Judah, provided 1,000 bulls, 7,000 sheep and goats of assembly, and the officials provided them with 1,000 bulls and 10,000 sheep and goats. A great number of priests consecrated themselves. The entire assembly of Judah rejoiced, along with the priests and the Levites and everyone who had assembled, including the foreigners who had come from Israel and those who resided in Judah. And there was great joy in Jerusalem. For since the days of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, there had been nothing like this in Jerusalem. The priests and Levites stood to bless the people, and God heard them, for their prayers reached heaven, his holy dwelling place. I know that was a much longer passage than I normally read, but thank you for hanging with me. There's many things I want to extract from the passage, so I just wanted to read it so you could be familiar with it. And let me lay you a backdrop. If you're not really familiar with the Old Testament history, most people are obviously much more familiar with King David, and after King David was King Solomon. And all of Israel was united. There was 12 tribes of Israel, as we know. And then after Solomon, king of Israel, there was a civil war, if you want to call it a civil war, and there was a split among the tribes of Israel, and 10 tribes broke off, and they maintained the name Israel. And the 2 tribes that were the descendants of the King David was actually the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. They took on the name Judah. Judah, and if you've ever read through Kings and Chronicles and you've been confused, because the Kings and Chronicles bounce out of the stories of Judah and then into the story of Israel, and then the story of Judah and the story of Israel. At this point, they are 2 separate nations. Judah is literally a separate nation. Judah has its own capital, which is Jerusalem, which had been the capital. When Israel branched off with the 10 tribes, the kings became very wicked. The kings immediately turned from the Lord, and there's a whole list of them, but they turned from the Lord. They set up idolatry, and they began to basically offer worship to their own gods. We have our own gods. Now, off and on, the nation of Judah stayed in touch with the Lord. Some of the kings were godly kings, and they maintained worship of God. Some of the kings embraced idolatry also and acted like Israel. And so Judah's kings were good and bad and good and bad and good and bad. And as you read through the kings, you get that impression. They had mountains and valleys with the Lord. The kings of Israel were terrible. They were all bad. There was no good kings. They all went into idolatry. They all forsook the Lord. About 250 years after that split happened, the nation of Assyria, which had been growing in power and began engulfing other nations and other countries and were becoming a huge empire, swallowed the nation of Israel. That is the 10-tribe nation of Israel, the ungodly, idolatrous nation of Israel. And they swallowed them up, and they came and they conquered them. And they were these were not nice captives. There's all kinds of historical documentation about what Israel would do to its captors. They would literally put hooks in their nose and drag them by hooks in their nose. They were fierce people. They would impale them with poles that would go up inside their bodies and hang them up for display. They were unusually cruel people, horrifically cruel people. In fact, it would be a tangent, but if you think of the story of Jonah and why Jonah ran away, because God had called him to go minister to this nation, and Jonah didn't want them saved. No, not those people. Those people. How many know sometimes you have it in your heart there's people that are so bad you don't want them saved? And there's an interesting twist in the story of Jonah. God still wants them saved, no matter how wicked they have become. God wants them saved, but that would be a side tangent. I'm not going there. Anyways, Assyria conquered all of Israel. Then it was during the reign of this king, Hezekiah. So this is about 250 years after the split. Judah has had good kings, and they've had bad kings. But Hezekiah sticks out. In fact, there are two kings that stick out that rise way above all the rest of them. One is Hezekiah, and one is Josiah. Josiah becomes much later. One of the reasons that they stuck out was because of what we just read in this passage. Hezekiah and Josiah were the only two, listen to this, the only two kings of 21 different kings. They were the only two that remembered the Passover and celebrated it. 2 out of 21. There was even some godly kings in that list, but they did not remember to celebrate the Passover. We just read at the end of the passage, and I know it was a lot to be thrown at you, but they said this had never been done since the time of Solomon, when the country was still all together. Once Judah broke off, this had never been done. They'd never done it. Really. This would be like, this is their national holiday. The Passover, not just a national holiday, but the Passover would be really the forefront of their thoughts, as it was a representation of the salvation that was delivered to us by our God. Every year we're supposed to commemorate this. Every year we make a feast of this. The feast would last for 7 days. This was what we would think of today with Christmas, 4th of July. Most of you don't have to work on those days because we have national holidays. This was a week-long national holiday. Woo! And not only do you get to rest from your work, but you celebrate it. And you celebrate it with joy, because you're remembering that the Lord had delivered us from the hands of Egypt, that the Lord had saved us from bondage. We were once a people of slaves, but God has set us free. And so Hezekiah remembered the Passover, and no kings had done this. At the time Assyria conquered the north, Hezekiah was the king of the south, and Assyria was a huge empire, and they were strong, and they thought we were also going to swallow up Judah. In fact, they intended to. And if you read about Hezekiah, they come knocking on Judah's doors, and they're like, look, we're swallowing up nation after nation after nation. We're growing this empire, and nobody can stop us. And as far as they were concerned, the gods, whatever lowercase g gods that the nations had, none of those gods can stand to Assyria. So your God's no different than all these other gods. Your God's a puny God too. Your God is weak. We're just going to come and engulf you. But Hezekiah was not like the kings of Israel. Hezekiah relied on the true God. And when they came to Hezekiah and they threatened, in fact, we're not going to read that passage, but if you go after this passage I just read to you about the Passover, Assyria comes. They make these threats. And Hezekiah did something the kings of Israel would never do. He fell on his face before God and cried out to God. He took the letter from the general that had been written to them, threatening them, and he laid it out before God, and he said, God, we don't know what to do. They are a powerful and mighty nation, but God, we're putting our eyes on you. We trust in you. You are our strength. And a miraculous thing happened. For those who know the passage, one angel, God said, I don't know, maybe I'll just send one of the angels for this. How many do we need? Well, just one of them would be fine. Just going to send one of them down there. But they have 185,000 in their army. Yeah, that's fine. God in one angel can wipe out an army of 185,000. He let the king stay alive so the king could be humbled to see that. You know that God that you said was worthless? That God that you said was puny? You might want to think differently. This is interesting because Hezekiah jumps into this passage in Chronicles. And the first year of his reign, he sets his heart to do something, and that is to remember the Passover. Hasn't been done since Solomon. I love the heart of Hezekiah. He's not a perfect king. Sadly, we can't find any perfect kings. He has a couple of marks. But overall, he stuck out as one of the most godly kings, one of the most, with his heart set on the things of God and set to follow God. And it began with this. He opens up in his first year, and he says, we're going to remember the Passover. But there was different steps that they had to do to prepare for this festival. There was a ceremonial cleansing, and the priests were not able to ceremonial cleanse themselves. So it said in the early verse, in verses 2 and 3 of what I just read, it said they celebrated the Passover in the second month because they were not able to do it at its regular time. I want to encourage you today that it is never too late to do what is right and obey God. It's never too late. You might be like, you know what? It's too late. I could have done it before, but I missed it. Hezekiah could have said, well, we were going to celebrate the Passover, but for those who know the Levitical setup of the feast, the Passover was celebrated on the 14th day of the first month, and they missed it. We didn't have time to prepare for it. We didn't have time to do it. We didn't have time to get ready for it. He could have said, well, I guess we won't do it. Maybe we'll do it down the road. How many know when God has put on your heart to do something for him, the more that you push it down the road and say, well, probably I ought to have a devotional life and get into the Word of God. But, maybe someday when I'm not so busy. How many know when in your mind it's maybe someday when I'm not so busy, the not so busy will never come. If God puts something on your heart to do for the Lord, let me encourage you to do this. Do it now. Do it right away. God's got something on your heart. Oh, he's calling me to do this, or he wants me to start this, or I want to get this discipline in my life. Just start today. Go home from the meeting and start. In fact, John Maxwell said, if you give something that is stirring you, and it is kind of burning inside of you, and you give it 24 to 48 hours before you act on it, you will probably not act on it. Some of you have been to meetings before, conferences, you're so stirred, you're so pumped. Man, you're pumped, you're ready to go out and take the world on, but you're like, well, I'll start next week. Probably not. Probably not, sadly. Start today. It's never too late to obey God. Hezekiah said, you know what, I know we missed the 14th of the first month, but that's okay, we're going to do it. And we can say, well, maybe God would get upset about that, but we see that God was pleased with everything they did here. Because if you were paying attention as we read the passage, it was long, there was a theme that stuck out 2 or 3 times, that they had set their heart to do it for God. And God was pleased because they set their heart to do it for God. It is never too late. Then in verse 5, it said that Hezekiah decided they were going to send a proclamation throughout all of Israel from Dan to Beersheba. Now you see this expression once in a while, from Dan to Beersheba. If we are American, we are Americans. For us Americans, not if you're Americans. For us Americans, that would be the expression from New York to L.A. Anybody ever heard that before? Somebody say, hey, from New York to L.A. What do they mean? They mean the whole country. Hezekiah said, we're going to write letters and invite people to come to this Passover from Dan to Beersheba. Now that's important, because here's what you would note. Judah, for 250 years, had been its own nation. Judah is only Judah and Benjamin. If you got that picture of Israel in your mind, it's kind of skinny. It's kind of the shape of Delaware. It's about the size of New Jersey, but it's the shape of Delaware. Long and skinny. Judah's only down here. Dan is the very tippy top. This is the nation of Israel who just got taken by the Assyrians. Hezekiah had a heart that said, you know those 10 tribes we lost 250 years ago? Their heritage still belongs to God. In my mind, they still belong to God. In my mind, God had called these people out. In my mind, God still has his hand on these people. I'm going to invite them to come to the Passover with us. And I'd be like, well, I thought they weren't there. They're taken in captivity. Well, when the Assyrians took tribes or nations into captivity, they didn't take every single person, because otherwise the land would become dormant and overgrown and so on and so forth. Assyria was kind of smart in the sense of conquering. They were smart. They weren't nice, but they were smart. What they would do is they would grab people and they would disperse them all over the place. By the way, this is how Israelites became all over the known world at that time, because they were dispersed by the Assyrians. Then they would take other nations and they would intermingle them, and they would force them. They did want the land to be occupied by people, because that's how it's cared for. But if I can just leave some people in Israel there and I throw other foreign nations in there, how many know you don't have a common language, you don't have a common culture, you don't have a common worship, and you're probably not going to unite around each other and form a coup and try to rebel. It's going to be much harder for you. So that's what we want to do. We're going to squash any of that by forcing people to. But there were Israelites still left in Israel. And Hezekiah said, I'm going to invite them, those Israelites, to come participate in the Passover. Yes, but Hezekiah, they haven't been with us for 250 years. I don't care. Yes, but Hezekiah, they turned from the Lord. I don't care. Now, I like to make personal applications, so I say, well, what would this say to us today? How many of us know people that the Lord had his hand upon their life, and the Lord was with them, and they've left the Lord? I want to encourage you, today is a day to invite them back. You say, hey, you've been far from the Lord, but we want you to come back. We want you to return. We want you to come. We want you to celebrate the Passover. We want you to remember. We want you to remember. The celebration of the Passover is about remembering. The communion we're going to take today is about remembering. We want you to remember what the Lord has done. We want you to remember that that he has once saved you, that he once called you, that he once had his hand in your life. I want you to remember what it was like to be in the presence of God. I know you've been far from God. I don't know how long you've been far from God. Hezekiah didn't care how long they've been away from God. Hezekiah said, reach out to him. Invite him to come back in. Now you go, I don't like that idea. We reach out to him. It might not go so well. We reach out to him. Where are they at? You know, some of them, they're stubborn. Some of them, their hearts are hard. Some of them, they're mockers now. They're just going to insult us. Did you listen to the passage? He wrote the letters. It says they went into the land of Ephraim and Manasseh. They went to Zebulun. These letters reached them, and some ridiculed, and some mocked. This is the word he used. Some scorned them. How many of you just love being mocked and ridiculed? Just mocked and ridiculed. I just love mocked and ridiculed. No, I mean, nobody likes being mocked and ridiculed, right? We got to toughen up, though, church. You know what? Some are going to mock and ridicule us, but are we going to cease from doing what the Lord has called us to do because some will mock and ridicule? Let me give you the good news. Let me give you the flip side. Some came. Some of them mocked and ridiculed and scorned them. Here's what it said right after that line. I believe it's like verse 12 or 13. Here's what it said right after the line. But some of them humbled themselves and came to Jerusalem and celebrated the Passover with Hezekiah. Now here's what I can almost guarantee you. I can almost guarantee you, if he hadn't written a letter to invite them, they wouldn't have come. If you didn't ask them, they wouldn't come. Do you know, they did a survey once. I don't know how long ago this was, so I don't know if this stat is still absolutely true or not. But they did a survey once asking people why they don't go to church, who don't go to church. Why don't you go to church? And at the time that survey was done, the number one answer, shockingly, the number one answer was, no one's ever invited me. Well, that's not that hard. Oh, they might make fun of me. That neighbor's always been mean to me anyways. They'd probably say something sneery. You know, we had a neighbor in Milton. He was a truck driver, so we'd only see him pop in from time to time, and he would come over the fence, and he was a friendly guy. He would chat with us or whatever. And I was just like, I should just invite Randy to church. And I'm trying to figure out how to do it. So we had a church picnic coming up, and he was a truck driver, so we'd have a horseshoe tournament at the church picnic every year. And I thought, Randy looks like a horseshoe player. Like, hey, Randy, you play horseshoes? Oh, yeah, I throw some shoes. I like horseshoes. Well, hey, we have a horseshoe tournament at our church this Sunday. After the meeting, we have a church picnic. How would you like to come and join us? Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. He came, he gave his life to the Lord, got baptized, and started attending the church on a regular basis. I said, man, what if I hadn't asked him? It was just that I just asked him. Oh, he's a truck driver. He's probably not into church or whatever. Well, I mean, how do you know what they're into? Maybe they're not into church. Maybe they're waiting for an invitation. I love that Hezekiah reached out to this group and said, come. And some humbled themselves, and they came. And some will humble themselves and come too if we just reach out to people. Verse 18 through 20, I love this. I'm going to reread these couple verses because there is a phrase in this verse that just grips me. It says, although most of the people who came from Ephraim and Manasseh, Issachar, and Zebulun had not purified themselves, they still ate the Passover, contrary to what was written. That sounds bad. Hey. You can't be doing that. You can't be doing that. There is a protocol to the way that you do things around here. They came and they partook of the Passover contrary to what was written, but Hezekiah prayed for them and said, may the Lord who is good pardon everyone, listen to this, who sets their heart on seeking God, the Lord, the God of their ancestors, even if they are not clean according to the rules of the sanctuary. The very next words are, and the Lord heard Hezekiah and healed the people. Some years ago, I preached a message. Actually, the title of my message was Not According to the Rules, and it was from this verse right here. Because I remember when the first time I read this that it jumped off the page at me, that they did this not according to the rules of the sanctuary. God doesn't want us caught up so much in the protocol or the hoops that we jump or whether you got all your ducks in a row. Now, I'm not saying there's not a right way to do things. What I'm saying is God is far more interested in something besides rules and regulations and protocol. And that is right here. What God wants to know is, do you have a heart to seek me? Did you want to seek me? Are you bringing me your heart? This group of people came from far away to come to the Passover because Hezekiah invited them, and they were, after Assyria destroyed them, how many know? Some of the people who probably came to your mind, like, man, I could reach out to so-and-so or so-and-so. Man, so-and-so used to go to church, but they haven't been in church for years. Maybe I ought to reach out to them. When we try the path outside of the Lord, it doesn't take long to hit some dead ends. How many know? We know it's going to happen. And it's like, yeah, you could try this. You could try your own way. You could do it your own way, but you're going to hit dead ends. And you can flirt around with every kind of sin that, God had said, stay away from this, don't do this. And because we go, God, he's just some kind of dictator or some kind of ogre who's up there just trying to make us unhappy. No, actually, he's trying to prevent destruction. Actually, he's trying to prevent brokenness because God knows what breaks people, and God knows what heals people and delivers people, and God knows what brings true joy and true satisfaction and true pleasure. Actually, at the right hand of God is pleasures forevermore, the psalmist said. Isn't that just beautiful? God knows what true pleasure is. God knows what this lie is too, this falsehood that's thrown at us. And after all the idolatry that Israel experienced, after all the false worship they did and the wickedness they did and being conquered and being destroyed and being drug away by the Assyrians, maybe they ran into a brick wall big enough to go, hey, that thing we tried, that didn't work out so well. What we don't know is how close to the end of the road is that person we'd want to reach out to? How close are they? That's why they humbled themselves. They were like, we did try this. It was a complete disaster. You know what they tried to warn us from? You know what the prophets said? Don't go there. Don't do this. They were right. They were spot on. This has led to destruction. Man, now we're getting an invitation. You mean God would still allow us to come? You mean you would invite us to even come to the temple? A lot of people who are outside of church, not everybody deals with this problem, but a lot of people deal with the problem of unworthiness. I'm not worthy to do that. My life's been so shipwrecked. I've been such a disaster. God couldn't love me. God couldn't forgive me. Have you ever met someone who said, God couldn't forgive me? You have no idea what I've done. You have no idea how far I've gone. Well, listen, Israel was wicked and idolatrous for 250 years of wickedness. They were steeped in it. They weren't too far gone. God would say, I would still call out to you. I would still appeal to you. I would still invite you to come. You can come to my temple. And then when they come, yeah, but isn't there before we can do this, isn't there an A and a B and a C and a D that we've got to do? And Hezekiah gave them an invitation. I want you to be able to remember the Passover even though you haven't followed the rules. He invited them to. It says they took the Passover. Then Hezekiah prayed. I know Pastor D used to say sometimes, right? It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. It doesn't say Hezekiah prayed first. They just did it. Not according to the rules. And Hezekiah's like, Lord, you'll be merciful to them, right? I know you're a merciful God. The fact that it says, and the Lord, his heart was turned to them and he healed the people, tells me that God smiled on this, because God looks at something deeper than a bunch of rules and regulations, and he looks at the heart of the person and says, here's what I'm looking for more than anything. Are you actually after me? Are you seeking me? You know, we might mess up in seeking God. You know what God cares about the most? We're seeking God. You know what it says in the Proverbs? It says a righteous man falls down 7 times, but he gets back up. It's not, I mean, yes, we don't want to fall, but it's not as big a deal that you fell down. The big deal is, do you get back up? Because some people fall back down, and I'll tell you who will show up when you fall down. The accuser of the brethren will show up. And the accuser would tell you, that's right, I knew all along that you were a filthy, rotten Christian. In fact, I don't even know how you call yourself a Christian. You might as well just stay down there, because if you get back up, you know you're going to fall again. You know you can't do this thing. You know you're never going to live up. You know what you do when the accuser does that? Get back up and keep following. Get back up and keep following. Get back up and keep your eyes on Jesus, and well, what if I trip again? Well, if you trip again, you get back up again. And when he said a righteous man falls down 7 times, I don't think he actually meant if it's 8, well, then you're toast. I think it was a number to say 7 is the number of completion. It's like the point he was trying to make is, what matters is that you keep getting back up. What matters is that you keep pressing into God. No matter how far you were, no matter how long gone you were, no matter what depth you had sunk into, get back up. And for those we're trying to encourage to come back to the Lord, you make sure they know there is no depth that's too deep for God. There's no distance too far for God that he won't heal you too. The day you set your heart to God, he's going to make a change in your life. That's the kind of God we serve. That's the kind of God we sang to. This morning, the songs we sang, he's a merciful, compassionate God, ready to pour out his love even to the people who have done the worst of the worst. And then verses 21 and 23 and 26, toward the end of the chapter, it said this, not once, not twice, but 3 times it repeated. They celebrated this for 7 days with great rejoicing. And the people were rejoicing so much. Listen, they already delayed it a month. They're a month late on the feast. They celebrated for 7 days with great rejoicing. They had such a great time. They were like, this was so wonderful. This was so wonderful. This was so amazing. Do you know what's amazing? When you get back into God, when you've been away from him, they hadn't done this since the days of Solomon. They're like, this is so good. This is so good. Let's do it another 7 days. Call your boss and ask him, can we extend that 7-day holiday into 14? Oh, wait a minute. Don't need to ask him. He's here too. Let's go another 7. Let's keep doing it. I remember years ago, some of you were here when this happened. Years ago, we had a week of prayer in January. We've done this from time to time throughout the years where we kicked off the year with a week of prayer, and we had a week of prayer in January. I think it was right after the Spanish church started renting from us, so some of the nights they had the sanctuary, so we went up to our youth room upstairs. We ended up labeling it the upper room. We had to crowd in there a little bit more because it's a lot smaller. And we had a night of prayer, and we had the next night of prayer, and we had the next night of prayer. And we went Monday through Friday, and we got done with Friday, and something that had never happened at that point, it was probably 2017. It's probably my 7th or 8th year here. And we had done this a number of years, but we had never had this happen. At the end of Friday, the whole group started looking at me to go, why are we going to stop this? Can we meet next week? I had never been asked that in 8 years. I'd never been asked, can we have a second week of prayer where we come out Monday through Friday to pray for an hour, which might have turned into an hour and a half. Was anybody here when this happened? Does anybody remember this? Just a couple. When we got done with the second week, a few of the people said, can we go a third week? And when we got done with the third week, a few people said, can we go a fourth week? And we had 1 month of prayer, Monday through Friday. There's nothing wrong with pressing into the presence of God, reprioritizing our life. I'm not saying we're calling everybody to a month of prayer, but what if we did? Something happened in that room. What happened was God was refocusing our hearts, and there was joy. There was actually great joy. It's just like this. They did this Passover. There was great joy. They said, man, 7 days. Let's go another 7 days. Round 2. We're going to go round 2. And after the second 7 days, it says there was great joy. There was great joy because obedience to the Lord produces great joy. Coming into the Lord's presence produces great joy. Tell you what else produces? Inviting those who have been away from the Lord and watching them come produces great joy. Great joy comes. Great joy comes as we obey the Lord and we remember the Lord. They were remembering the Passover. And the Passover is remembering the salvation of God. And as they remembered the Passover, great joy come. And you know what I think sometimes we forget? In fact, we were just at a meeting, not a conference, but a meeting at another church just recently, talking with some old friends. And a loved one had just gotten saved after years and years and years and years and years and years of being away from the Lord. A loved one had just gotten saved. And they said these words to us. They said, you know, sometimes you forget that God still does this miracle working business. We get kind of apathetic and we forget that God actually saves people. God actually saves really hard people. God saves actually real actual addicts, really addicted, really struggling. God saves perverted people. Actually delivers them from the perversion and they turn from it and saves them to the extent where they help to rescue others from the same thing. God really does this. God still does the miracle working business. God still does the miraculous healings in people's bodies that we go, well, I don't think God is in that business anymore. How many know he's still in the business? He's in the that marriage cannot come together. That marriage is doomed. It's completely doomed. There is no hope for that marriage. God is still in the business to restore that marriage. My son's been cut off. I haven't spoke a word to him for 20 years. We're probably never going to say a word to each other again. God is in the restore the son to the father business. Whatever you put your own situation in there, however hard or deep or terminal you think it is, we forget the Passover. Do you remember Passover? We just read it in a Bible account, so like it's sometimes we learned it in Sunday school and we don't really think about it. But what if you and your ancestors had been in slavery for